Hey, and we're back. Hey guys, what's up? How are you guys doing? I can't believe it's another Tuesday. It's kind of crazy. It's funny because I think this is my fifth episode of the pod. By the way, don't I look like such a podcaster this morning? Like with the hat and the headphones and the hoodie. I just really wanted to be like super comfortable in this one. But it's kind of crazy that I started doing this pod not long ago. I'm trying to zoom out, by the way, and I feel like I'm just getting close to the camera. Let me just shuffle a bit back. By the way, if you're wondering what that weird thing that looks like a TV or like some old school DVD player is, it's like a UV. Wait, I think it's a UV light, or maybe it's an infrared light. I know one of them gives you cancer, and it's not that one, thank God. My mum told me to buy it because apparently it's really good for your skin. So I feel like one of those ladies who like lives down in Florida who's always trying to get a tan, although it doesn't actually give you a tan. It's just a red light and you sit in front of it. And I have no clue if it actually helps my skin. I'm not sure, but I just sit in front of it and just like bask in this red light for like 15 minutes every morning if I have time. And I love it. I probably should have cleaned up the background, but it's just going to be a feature in this pod. So yeah, like I was saying, it's funny because I started this pod maybe just before June, so the end of March. And I published, this should be like my sixth, I think this is my sixth one or my seventh one. But for a few reasons, I've had to take down a couple of them, largely because for kind of like US visa reasons, and I don't really know. I'm trying to play it like extra on the safe side right now. So, talking about like particularly wholesome things, and there were a couple that could have been considered slightly controversial, not even very controversial. So to play it safe, I've taken them down, and I'll upload them, as time goes on. And they were cool. They weren't life-changing, but I'll upload them, keep the content of the pod a little bit more healthy. That doesn't really make any sense. You can interpret that as you will. But as in, I want to obviously have more content, but who cares? Because as the weeks go on, the content will come on. Oh my God, guys. This last week has been probably my most social week. By the way, I have no, I'm trying to do the podcast where every other week I do one just me. And then in between that, I have a friend on or interview someone or someone who I think is interesting. And for these solo ones, they're going to just be more chilled about my life, about random shit that I want to talk about. Honestly, I think for some psychological air, just so I can process my thoughts and talk about it. And, I've been getting some comments of girls who are around like 23 to 27 being like, they can relate to it and stuff. And I find that cool and like motivating for me to keep going and doing these. And also I really enjoy doing them. Like a couple of my friends who I've asked to be on the pod have been a bit like, yeah, okay, but I'm really scared. And I honestly was a bit like, what do you mean? Like you're scared? And they're like, well, you feel like you're talking to a bunch of people and it's a bit, nerve-wracking, and the stuff that I say is going to be recorded. And it's such an interesting way to think about doing these pods, because I get it to a certain extent. Like when there are times I'm like, I really want to record a podcast today, and then I can't because I'm like, I don't feel like myself right now, so I can't do it because I know I'll be weird. I don't know if you guys get that. It's like if you're invited to a party and you want to go, but you don't feel like yourself in that moment. So you're like, if I go, I know I'm going to be strange. So should I go? And then you go and you like have a bit of a shit time because you're like, I don't feel like myself. To be honest, I kind of had that on Saturday, like a little bit, but I'm going to go back to that. See, I feel like this is my crazy brain. Like it just goes in like spider webs of tangents. But I actually have got notepad and pen so I can be less confusing in these. But yeah, so I've had friends who are like keen to do it, but then they're not really sure, and they get a bit like, oh, I'm a bit nervous that if my voice is recorded, it could be like used against me. But you know what? And I'm not just saying this because I'm 24 and I'm at that age where typically, people are like, yeah, but fuck like the companies who do that and all that stuff. Like I don't think of myself as a particularly I'm liberal, but I'm not like Labour. I'm not right-wing. Let's just clarify. I'm not right-wing, but I definitely, I'm not like, fuck the system, you know, like I'm kind of like, the system it can be fair enough, and like capitalism works pretty well as opposed to communism. And even though capitalism is fucked up, I kind of think that all politics is always just there's never going to be any kind of harmony, and those people who want peace on earth and harmony, there's always still even going to be corruption within that. But you see, this is what I mean. But going back to I do think to a certain extent, like there are some things where people have asked me, aren't you worried that if you talk about stuff on here, like people can use it against you? And yeah, but also like, who cares? Do you know what I mean? Like I could say something on here and host like a value or a belief, and then like next week I could change my mind and be like, I actually don't really think that anymore, like I'm gonna take it back. As long as you're not saying anything too controversial. And also I do want this to be the place where people can say controversial stuff, but like not the kind of shit where I'm gonna get in trouble with the government, you know. But I think that everyone has a right to like host a belief or say something that they think and then take it back, or just be like, oh, I actually didn't adhere to that rule which I said that I agreed with because I'm just not a perfect human being. And I actually kind of did that now that I'm speaking about this, like last week. So in one of my videos on Instagram, I talk about how I think ghosting is like the worst thing ever, and not the worst thing ever, but it's the worst way to kind of wrap it up with someone. Or human beings are, you know, human beings, and I think you should treat people with respect, and if you're not interested in someone, you should like say it. And last week I actually did go on a date with this guy who's super nice, and I thought I liked him in the beginning, and like I do like him. I think he's a really, really nice guy and like attractive and everything, but I just didn't have that like click, I don't think. It only took me to like the second date to realize that. And instead of just being upfront and saying it, I kind of just like let it like try to do like let it simmer for a little bit. And that went against one of my things that I spoke about in my podcast before last, where I was like, ghosting is so mean, you shouldn't do that. And to be fair, I consider ghosting like ignoring them. I think that is, should we Google it? What's the definition of ghosting? Ghosting. I think we need Urban Dictionary for this. Urban Dictionary, ghosting. Urban Dictionary defines ghost as to avoid someone until they get the picture and stop contacting you. In short, to ghost is to completely disappear and not contact an individual, often leaving the other human confused and upset. It commonly happens in the online dating world. Heartbreak. God, that looks so like Justin Bieber 2012 or whenever the Justin Bieber phase was. If you're just listening to this audio, now I'm going to describe myself being a loser, but I basically just made a heart signal with my hand and then broke my hands apart. Anyway, moving on. Promise you I'm not 12 years old. So technically I didn't ghost him, which I think is fair. And I also think you kind of have to read the situation. Like if I kind of knew this, not like knew, but we had mutual friends or whatever, even though it was like a Hinge situation. But now see, I'm going to write it down. Guys, I'm getting good at this because I just thought of another leeway of conversation, but I want to go back to the Hinge thing. Anyway, so because we kind of had mutual friends, I thought if I didn't have mutual friends with someone, I would really have no qualms about being like, hey, I'm just not into you. Have a nice life. But I think if you're dating someone who you kind of know or you have friends, you have to be more cautious about how you do it. But speaking about Hinge, I am so like proud of our generation for becoming so much more open about online dating and meeting on Hinge. I went to a dinner party thing on Saturday, which was really nice, but at least I think 3 people there who like, there were 3 kind of like couples, or no, there was one couple, and then a few other people who were talking about their like current boyfriends or people that they're seeing, and they all met them on Hinge. And I just thought, you know what? Bravo, because there's nothing wrong in living your life and you potentially want to have a romantic interest and you want to meet new people. I think that's very commendable and cool and nice. And I think there is still stigma sometimes when people say that they met on Hinge or on like some online dating thing, even though it is for sure fading out. But I think it's great that younger people are like, yeah, we just met on Hinge and like it's just not a big deal, because I just don't think it is a big deal. I'm sure most of you don't think it's a big deal, to be honest. But I remember when I was younger, and when my parents like had friends, when my parents were together, because my parents basically got together when they had my brother and then me. My he'll be 30 this year, had my brother and then me, and then got together, only got married when I was 16. And then they got divorced when I was 18. So when my parents were together, I remember them talking about their friends. And even they didn't even really want to tell me, I think, because there was so much of a taboo about it. But their friends who did like online dating. But like, but then, you know, there weren't like dating apps. Like this was before Tinder. So people would be going online to like Match.com and eHarmony and stuff. Cheeky plug. Kidding, not getting paid by them. Should be though. People, yeah, who'd be going online dating and meeting those people. And that did get way worse of a rap because, and this is just me totally guessing why, I don't know for sure, but I think it was more often that there were like weirder people who would go on those sites, and maybe a lot more like scamming and stuff that happened. Although I'm sure a lot of love happened too, you know, physical and metaphorical. No, I'm sure, you know, a lot of people fell in love from those things and met people that they liked, and probably the same kind of outcomes that come from today's dating apps, although I feel like maybe today's dating apps is more of like a casual situation, because there are probably younger people on it, and younger people are typically not looking for things as serious. But I was having a few conversations about relationships and things this weekend with new people. Like I said in the beginning, this has for sure been my most social week of, if not of the year. No, I mean, for sure of the year, but like, if not of my life, like, it's honestly been overwhelming considering I have been a hermit, a 24/7 hermit during Corona. And now I've had to like go out and meet all these people. I had a bit of a crazy Sunday yesterday because I was just like, oh my God, I had such social angst about how many people I'd met, and was like, I can't do this. I need to just get in my room and be alone and watch movies and shit. But I was talking to this guy on Saturday, and we were talking about, relationships today, and he was saying potentially that he's old-fashioned because he doesn't believe in like open relationships, and that that he doesn't think that they work. And I thought that was really interesting, because I typically kind of agree that they don't really work, and you have to be unbelievably strong in your connection with that person who you want to have an open relationship for it to fully work. But it's just interesting because I guess like there are a lot of people, I mean, and again, maybe it's just because I'm 24 and like this is nothing new, and you know, history repeats itself and every generation is like this, like, you know, the 60s and like free love and hippies and all that stuff. But the people that like, a lot more people now are kind of interested in it, or like being able to like see one person and date other people. But I guess that's kind of different from being properly in an open relationship where you have one person who's like, this is my boyfriend or girlfriend, but it's open, as in I can still date other people and tell them about it, which I think is crazy, telling people about that kind of stuff. Like, I was telling these people on the weekend that when I was with my ex and we were together for like almost 7 years, like a long time, but a lot of it was we were together for like 2 or 3 years and then we broke up for like a year. Then we were together, and then it was technically like an open relationship, even though we never like said that, where we were together, kind of, but we didn't tell anyone about it. And like, he was allowed to like get with other people, as was I, but we could like, I was so concrete on the rule that was like, I never ever want to hear about anything. Like, I don't want to hear about it. And I know people are different, but I'm just very much like one of those people that's like, what doesn't know can't hurt me. And like, I'd rather be ignorant and in bliss than finding out all this information which doesn't affect me, you know? So, yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting, kind of different relationship routes, as you might want to say, that people go down. But yeah, but going back to my crazy social week. So like I said, I've been super hermit, like, okay, also shout out to this girl called Miss Izzy Jones on Instagram, who has asked me to talk about my morning routine for so long now, and I just haven't. But I feel like this is a good segue into, swimming into a little breaststroke right now. If you can't see me, I'm doing actual breaststrokes. A segue into my morning routine and what it has been during Corona. And then in comparison to like my last week. So during Corona, I've been waking up at about 7. It kind of changed. In the very beginning, I was waking up at 7, kind of getting like straight into my gear and going for a run or working out. And I'll run to this specific place in the park. I'll do circuits like burpees, star jumps, I don't know, knee ups, planks, etc. For about half an hour, and then I run home. And then from that point, I was doing 2 hours of Hebrew, and then I was technically on furlough. There were some things, though, 'cause I work with restaurants, some things that I wanted to just look into with restaurants and stuff. So I was kind of doing some like extra curricular work regarding restaurants, but like not major work. And then I was reading a lot. That was the main thing I was doing during Corona, reading a lot, which was really like pivotal for me. And I think made me learn a lot about myself and how I should treat others and just kind of other human beings in general. I found myself during Corona. Guys, that was my gap year that I never had. But that was kind of what I was mostly doing. But now my morning routine is totally different. So I am a super morning person. And because I'm a super morning person, that's when my brain functionality is like, I'm at 100%. You know, I can take things in. I'm like a sponge between probably 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. or 12. Or maybe 6 a.m. to 11 is kind of my golden hours. And then after that, it just slowly goes downhill for me. So because that's the case, I wanted to shift what time I was learning Hebrew at till the morning and exercise later, which also massively goes against my grain of my normal fitness routine, because I'm also I way prefer working out in the morning. Excusez-moi. So I decided to change it up. So now what my routine is, I wake up at 7 if I, haven't gone out the night before or whatever, which most of the time during Corona, obviously I was not going out. So I wake up at 7 now. I'll get up, make my bed. Shout out to Jordan Peterson about how making your bed is important. And then make a big fat coffee. In this mug always. If you guys aren't just listening, it's just basically this massive like Starbucks mug that I make it in. Nescafe Gold. I use the cheap shit. Sometimes I just like coffee that isn't, you know what? Unless it's a nice fancy like cappuccino or flat white, I hate fancy coffee. And fancy, I mean good quality. I like the bad quality, like black American coffee. I put in soy milk. Very exciting. And then, kind of potter back into my room. Sometimes I take a shower if I'm really feeling inspired that morning. Come back to my room, brush my teeth, all the basics, the basic hygienic shenanigans that take place when one wakes up. Come back into my room, and then I'll do my 2 hours of Hebrew, which I normally start at like 8 to 9. That's what I'll do. Right now I'm learning the alphabet, which is, do you know what, such a humbling experience to have to learn how to read, because I haven't done that in like 23 years, having to learn how to read. So also with Hebrew, obviously the letters are completely different. They don't look like English letters. They're just kind of symbols to me right now. So I'm basically learning how to read right now. But before, what I was doing was going onto YouTube and looking up videos where people would be speaking Hebrew and then slow it down massively, and then I would transliterate that, which is like when you just hear the sounds, and I would write down the sounds I heard, and then because I am now able to speak basic Hebrew, I was able to understand what they were saying through that, and then I'd call my dad every now and then and be like, what does blah blah mean? So yeah, now I'm just learning how to read and write. I'll do 2 hours of that. And then 9 a.m., 10 a.m. on Mondays, I always have like work stuff, like a meeting or whatever. So from today, it was have a meeting, or I just try and typically start work at around 10 a.m. And last week was a really good week for me in not eating till 3. If you guys listen to my food and fasting podcast, you'll know that that's something which I try to do. And also it fluctuates when I'm not strict about that. Sometimes I'm just hungry and I'm not in the mood to wait till 3 so I'll eat. Last week I was really in the mood to wait till 3. So I won't really think about food until that point. Potentially I'll cook some things, but that's kind of about it. And then I'll work most of the day and I'll get in a lot of reading if I can. Although this week, like last week, not only was my most social week, but also my busiest week at work. So I didn't have any time. Well, I don't like saying I didn't have any time because you have time for whatever you prioritize. So I didn't prioritize last week Hebrew, and I didn't prioritize exercising, and I didn't prioritize, what else did I not I realized I just said that really weird. Prioritize. What else did I not prioritize? I didn't prioritize reading. So I was waking up, I was getting my coffee, my bucket of coffee, doing my red light in the weird little Florida lady thing over there, and reading for 15 minutes while the light was on when I could. And then I was just jumping straight into work because I was taking off furlough last week. And essentially the reason why I was so busy and so social, the reason why I was so busy is because from July 4th, restaurants had opened, in the UK from after Corona and after lockdown and stuff. So I had to contact a bunch of restaurants, find out who we were still working with, sort out the opening times on the app, on WalkUp, which is the company that my brother started and a couple of other co-founders. And so I basically was just working a lot. And then I was just kind of seeing people and just being more social. And then on Friday also saw people being more social. Saturday went out like to a dinner thing, which was super nice, but all with people that I don't know really, like that I've met in the last week. And then went to a couple parties on Saturday. And again, like I don't really know these people and like everyone is super nice. But oh my God, guys, on Sunday, I just woke up and was like, Sunday when I woke up, I was fine. But then later on in the day, I felt so overwhelmed. Like, and I don't know if you guys ever get this, and I never normally get social angst or like, I'm thankful that I'm not really a socially anxious person, and one of my best friends is, and I know people who are, so I know how much like of a torment that can be. So I'm really grateful that right now at this point in my life I don't get like that. I don't tend to overanalyze things massively, and I'm normally okay, in my mental state, which is lovely for me, of course. But yeah, Sunday I was just like, oh my God, I've met so many new people in this last week. And when you're like, people don't know you, like, and I don't know, I think I was just getting in my head about like people making judgments about me or thinking about me a certain way. And it all comes from a self-centered perspective anyway. But it was just overwhelming. And I kind of came to the conclusion that I had just been like going out too much in comparison to what I was used to, coming from Corona where I was just chilling at home, doing nothing, studying, working, reading, and then going all the way opposite, like 180-degree U-turn into super social and like conversations with people and trying to listen to people. And I think it was too much. It was too much. I mean, like I had a really nice sleep yesterday. I ordered some sushi. I watched some of a movie and felt much better. Like now I feel really good. Can you hear that? Did you guys hear that? That was my stomach. Turns out I am a bit hungry. I think I need to drink some more water right now. But yeah, so it was just kind of overwhelming. And then on top of that, all the work stuff, making sure everything was going smoothly, making sure that people, when they were requesting to join queue and eat now for these restaurants, were getting it, trying to support my brother and our team. And then there's all the social stuff, like posting on progress, which to be honest, I can't really complain about that being a strain because I only really start posting now with stuff to do with the pod and stuff that I want. So it's actually way more enjoyable. And it's funny because in the first podcast I did, where I've taken that one down now, but where I was talking about how the reason why I initially stopped doing the fitness stuff with Progress Pure was because I just it got to a point where I just didn't really care about it and like what people were saying about it and the comments I was getting. Like I just wasn't, I didn't care enough. So that's partly why I stopped. But now that I'm restarting it and I'm trying to reshift it towards stuff that I want to do more and things that I care about, I care so much more about those comments. One sec, I need to get some aqua. I guess so much more about those comments, which I guess is like a blessing and a curse, because now I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm actually posting about stuff and talking about stuff which I care about, which is, you know, all I could ask for. But then I'm like, damn, like if I get a mean message or something like that, I'm like, oh. And I used to never really, I really didn't used to ever care about mean comments, because I felt like, and I was talking to my friend about this, I feel like if you aren't being yourself and someone judges you, then like, fuck that, because you're not being yourself anyway. I know that sounds weird, but like if this is specific to the Instagram thing, if I'm posting photos that are, you know, they're of me, but I don't really feel like that's who I am as a genuine person, then if someone comments something mean, I'm a bit like, okay, but you don't know me, so whatever, I don't care. And my friend was saying that she gets it, but the other way around. So she gets it that if she goes to but if I post something on Instagram where it is genuine and someone judges me, then, oh no, guys, I'm just taking you down the yellow brick road of talking nonsense because I'm getting confused myself. Right, we're going to backtrack. So what I was saying that if I'm truly myself and someone judges me for being truly myself, then I'm like, fuck them, right? I'm like, screw them, it doesn't matter because I love myself anyway, and so I don't really care if someone judges me for being myself, because like, who am I supposed to be if not myself, right? She was saying that she's the opposite, like she doesn't like it when people judge her for being herself, and that makes her feel insecure. So she'll try and put on a front when she goes to parties and stuff, so that she's not really acting herself, so that she kind of expects then people to judge her, or not expects, but then if people judge her, it doesn't matter, because she's like, well, I wasn't being myself anyway, right? But now with Instagram, what we were talking about is I'm saying, well, now that I'm being like truly myself on Instagram, if people don't vibe with that, then actually, I guess what I'm saying is kind of out of place, because then if I was going with what I was initially saying about the party and like social thing, then I should really not care, because I'm like, well, this is what I am and what I'm doing. But because I'm creating content, and in social life, I'm obviously not creating content, I'm just existing in the, you know, ecosystem of humans in the world. Sometimes I'm like bummed if you don't enjoy it, you know, I'm like, oh, that's a shame, because I thought it was cool, whatever. And to be honest, I haven't really got messages that have been like, oh, I really didn't like that. Although when I did first do the thing, I got lots of comments about like the audio not being very good and that kind of stuff. And then obviously there are just trolls out there who, wait, I should turn my radiator off. It is too warm. Just like trolls out there who just try and be mean anyway. But yeah, so I was saying it's like a blessing and a curse, because it means a lot more to me now in a nice way when I get like nice messages about what I'm doing, because I'm not gonna, with progress a lot of the time, whilst it didn't kind of hit home for me and I didn't get that sense of reward, now when I get nice messages, like, you know, I'm just human, I'm like, that's nice, I got a nice message, that's so sweet, you know, it makes me feel good about myself. But yeah, so as I was saying, I think that I just overdid it last week and it was too much. And I don't ever really do those like Myers-Briggs tests to find out, you know, what kind of personality type you are and all that stuff. Because I can understand why there are commonalities and people can track their personality against others. But a lot of the time I think it's bullshit. I think it's bullshit because my mum is Irish and she's kind of like ingrained in me that like everyone's different and you can't define yourself in certain ways by tests. And I'll go into a story about when I was younger and how my mum, I think her beliefs have impacted mine in that way. But I think just based on living that I am very much half introvert, extrovert, because I can go out and be social and have a really nice time and love speaking to new people and everything. But oh my God, if I do it too much, I am just like sick of it. Like I also love being on my own, eating popcorn every day at 6:30, watching movies, not speaking to people, and not like I don't, you know, have a friendship group necessarily. I have individual really close friends, but no one who I'm like, oh, I want to hang out with these group of people and do whatever they're doing, because I really like being on my own and just doing my own thing. So I think that I don't know if I'm more extrovert or more introvert, but that, and like even doing this, you could argue like doing a podcast is an extroverted thing to do, right? But then again, like I'm doing it on my own. I'm doing all the editing on my own. I'm just having a conversation. I'm basically just thinking out loud for an hour or however long, you know, these go on for. So I don't know if I'm more introvert or more extrovert, but I think I definitely crossed the line last week of like, oh, I'm definitely not this much of an extrovert. Like I need to chill. So yeah, I mean, it was a very interesting week, and I had a great time and met really cool people, but I'm just so relieved to just start Monday now and be like, oh, like I woke up this morning, I had such a good night's sleep, although I had some crazy dreams. And it's interesting. So my dog died, right? My dog, Mickey, who I love him, obviously. He died in March 10th, I believe. And just of old age, like we'd had him for so long, maybe like 13, 14 years. And it was really sad for me because I loved him so much, but he was in a lot of pain. So we had to put him down. He just wasn't like, he just couldn't live basically anymore. And I was really sad at the time and I cried. But although I felt like my mourning process was pretty smooth, because even though I was crying, I was also very understanding of the fact that he had a really nice life and death is a part of life, and I can't be too upset about it because I'm lucky to, you know, even have had a little mix in my life. But it's really interesting because I think I'm still mourning intensely because I have nightmares about him all the time. Not all the time. Sounds like Mickey is possessing me with his curse or his spirit. But maybe twice a week or once to twice a week since he died in early March, I will have dreams and nightmares about him. And often something sad or scary happens and I wake up crying, thinking about him. And last night I had this freaking crazy dream. I dream about death like a lot. Also, I'm a bit hesitant about telling people my dreams because I don't really care talking to people about my dreams, but I have told people before my dreams, they're like, oh, it's really interesting because it must mean that you think about this or you do that or you want to like there. And it's a bit invasive. I'm like, don't you know, get in my head about knowing what my like deepest subconscious is telling you just because I'm telling you about this time where I killed someone. But seriously, last night I killed someone in my dream and I do it a lot. Like, that might be fucked up, but I do. And I have like visceral dreams where I've killed people or I'm killing people. I'm going to Google this actually because like before I tell you about how I kill them and all this stuff, it's a bit weird. Wait, why do I dream about killing people? Okay, when I say people, it's not like genocide. Like this is not like an active thing. By the way, I'm really scared now that I've just said the word genocide. That's going to come up on like some algorithm and like show me up on it. But it's always just like someone who's trying to hurt me and I have to defend myself. And so I end up killing them. And I always win, by the way. Like I'm never killed. So, you know, I think it's a sign that I have some good self-defense. But yesterday I was with Mickey in my dream. I was holding Mickey and he was in that phase of his life where he was so old, you know, and like not well. And some guy was chasing me and wanted to kill Mickey. And I was like, fuck that. You're not killing Mickey. So we're like running down the street and yeah, I tried to kill Mickey. And so then I killed him. And now that I just Googled, why do I dream about killing people? This thing has just come up saying dreams of murder may signal real life aggression. Oh. People who dream about murder may be more aggressive during waking hours, a controversial new study finds. The researchers also found that people who dream of killing others tend to be hostile, introverted. What? Wow, this is crazy. This is doing full circle. And often don't get along well with others when they're awake. Cool. I just want to say I don't think that's that applicable. And by the way, I really only dream of killing people like maybe once a month. The thing about Mickey, I dream about with him where he's like dying or something like once a week. But I'm going to move on from talking about my crazy, scary dreams. I also sometimes have funny dreams. I don't know if you guys get this, where something funny happens in the dream and I wake up laughing, which is so nice to get. You know, like wake up and you're like, ha! That sounded more like a scream than a laugh, but like, ha ha ha! Those dreams. I love those ones. Yeah, those are the good ones. But as I was saying, going back, my mum and the reason why I don't really believe in like labels. And, you know, I understand like dyslexia is obviously a thing and can be a really, really difficult like learning disability and just make your life like hard, and ADHD and all of that stuff. But I honestly think that now there are people who have it, of course, but now like it's so easy to get diagnosed with that stuff nowadays, and it's so dangerous in my personal opinion, because when you're so young, like when these kids are so young and doctors are diagnosing them with all these learning disabilities, and it can just be so risky. Like when I was a kid, like 8 or something, really young, they called my mum and they were like, hey, Mairead, that's my mum's name. Hey, Mairead, Molly, we think she, you know, you need to come into school because we need to talk to her. We need to talk to you about something to do with like her and learning and everything. So my mum was like, okay, cool. Obviously, you know, cares about me. Thanks, mum. So she comes in, and apparently, I don't remember this, but they get me, my mum, and the teacher, you know, in a room. And they said to her, like when I wasn't listening, they were like, we think she's dyslexic, and has ADHD. Fucking hell, right? So I've got all of them. I'm a mixed bag, right, at this time. I'm a mess and I didn't even know it. I thought school was fine. I thought I was having a great time. So you say all these things to my mum. And my mum, she's Irish, you know, and Irish people culturally, I think, are very like, not like stiff upper lip, but kind of a bit like, they're not like a frills kind of people. Like they're not that fussy. They're very, you know, to the point, and I think can be, what's the right word? Like, they can be very like realistic and tough people. And so for my mum to hear this stuff, she was just kind of like, you what? You think what? You know, she just didn't get it. Like, which I love my mum for, by the way. And I think for me personally, it's a good way that I like thinking in a similar kind of way, because I think it makes you more tough, like as a person, and less vulnerable or you know, fragile as a human being. And so like I think I have thicker skin, basically. I think the Irish have thick skin. And so they said, yeah, we think, you know, she's dyslexic, and she has ADHD. Look, like watch. They go to me, hey Molly, can you go and grab us a green pencil? And apparently I was like, yeah, green pencil, cool, no probs. So I leave, and they said, come back, you know, after you get the green pencil, go get it and come back. So I leave. And then after like 20 minutes, I didn't come back, and they didn't know where I was, and they were looking for me and everything. And then they go and they look in the playground, and I'm in the playground playing with my friends, right? And I don't know if I ever even got the green pencil, but I'm out there playing. And they look at my mum and they go, point to me, you see? And my mum was like, what? What are you talking about, do you see? She's playing with her friends. And apparently my school were like, I mean, it's a clear sign that she, you know, isn't concentrating, isn't listening, distracted by other things. There's probably a lot of thoughts going on in her head, is looking for attention, you know, all this stuff. And my mum was like, this is ridiculous. I'm not doing that. And there've been multiple other occasions where, like, to be honest, I am bad at spelling. I don't find it difficult to read, but I am bad at spelling. And sometimes I find words like hard to spell and all this stuff. And there were times at school where I knew that I might, like people who were also diagnosed with like dyslexia and all that stuff, and like I had similar things to them, and I was a bit like, oh, maybe I also have that. And I would say to my mum, can I get tested? Please, mum, please, I want to find out what's wrong with me. And can I get tested? Honestly, because I wanted extra time in exams, and I knew that if I did all that stuff, I'd get extra time. And also, these kids that I know who are diagnosed with this stuff, they all get like study drugs, which now that I'm 24 seems so insane, that I knew people at like 15, 16 who were on like modafinil and what are the other ones? I think it's one beginning with R. Like there's study drugs that like help you concentrate, and like that's just like drugs, you know? And my mum basically said to them, listen, I don't want her diagnosed with anything. She's not going on medication. There's nothing wrong with her. She's just a kid. And yeah, sure, maybe she doesn't concentrate, and maybe she fidgets more, and maybe she says like things, and maybe she's a bit slower at spelling. But that's just the way that her brain is, and that's just who she is. And I'm not going to try and like fix that, because it would make her, you know, quote unquote better. Sorry, my nose is super itchy. Quote unquote better in exams and help you guys get better grades. Like, you know, if she fucks up her exams, she fucks up her exams. And also my mum and my dad were super supportive in helping me educational wise, and I concentrated at school, and so thankfully I did get good grades and stuff. Although there were times where I did so badly at school. Like, as I got older, I definitely did better. But oh my God, sometimes at school I was so silly. Like, I feel like times in my life I just feel like I'm in my own world, in an own bubble. Like, I originally wanted to go to the school Highgate, which is a school that my brother went to. And it was cool, it was co-ed, and I, you know, had come from, even though my primary school was co-ed, the last year that I was in it, they made it just girls, and the boys also separated. So I wanted to go to a mixed school, and it was a really sporty school, and they did cheerleading, and I loved cheerleading, so I really wanted to go there. And my mum was friends with a guy who worked there, and so when I took the exam, my mum said to him, you know, hey, can you just like keep an eye out for Molly's paper? Let me know how she does, kind of thing. And he was like, yeah, of course. Like, well, I'll have a look at it. And I think they were like, how did the exam go? You know, when I got home, and I was like, yeah, it was fine. Like, I probably smashed it, you know, whatever, thinking I was doing so well. And the guy called my mum, and my mum, you know, how did she do? And he goes, Mairead, my mum's name, Mairead, it's honestly like she sat a different paper. Like, the answers that she put are so not relevant to the exam that I'm worried. I'm worried about her. Isn't that madness? So, and I don't know what was going on. Like, I was really like a full functioning child, I guess, that I thought. But at the end of the day, I am very happy that my mum never diagnosed me with that stuff, because I would have done the whole extra time thing. And also, like, you know, each their own. Like, if you want to do that, your kid probably might have issues, then obviously go for it and do you. But just in my specific case and in my scenario, I am happy that it worked out that way. If it worked out the other way, where I, you know, got extra time and I was put on medication, I did diagnose myself with those things, then I'd probably be happier with that way. But trying to always, you know, look at the positives of that kind of stuff. I think that also not having extra time, I do well with pressure. And I think it gave me more pressure and made me perform well in exams. Except that bloody entrance exam to Highgate, which I absolutely flunked. I'm going off now on a random funny thing that happened on the weekend. 2 kind of crazy things happened to me on the weekend. Well, not crazy, but do you ever have moments where you do things or you say things and then you're just like, oh my God, I'm an awful person? Or like, you're like, I'm so stupid. Or you're like, oh, I don't know, you know, when your ego takes over. But I got in a taxi. I took this taxi company called Ola on Saturday. They're cheaper than Uber, and I wanted to try it out. And so I got in the cab, and they have this rule in Ola, which I didn't know about because I've never been in a cab company that does this. You get like a 4-digit code, and then you tell them the 4-digit code, and they like match you to that code, and then they drive, right? So I get in the car, and I'm sitting in the car, you know, and I've like got my makeup on, and like I look nice, and the guy turns around, the cab driver, and he goes, what's your number? And I was just like, I'm not giving you my number. Because I thought he was like asking me out. And he goes, what? And I'm like, what? And then he goes, no, your code. I need your code. It was the biggest like face palm moment where I was like, oh my God, I hate myself. I'm so sorry that I just like assumed that you wanted like my phone number, no number. And also for me to just like the arrogance of me just sitting in the car and like not even asking him what he meant, but just going, I'm not giving you my number. Just the audacity. You know, sometimes human beings, it's so funny, like the psychological angst that we go through. But anyway, I felt so bad about that. And then I gave him my 4-digit code and I was like, I'm so sorry. I mean, this guy probably had like a wife and kids and all this stuff and like some, you know, just super rare, basically. So that was a weird cab thing where I just acted annoyingly. And then at like 11:30 p.m, I was in an Ola again, and we're driving, and this is in Notting Hill at this point, like 11:30 p.m. And the car just suddenly slams to a halt, honks down on the horn like, you know, massively. And I like jolt forward and look up, and this skater, right, on his skateboard zooms past so close to being hit, so close. I look to my left to look at who it was. This guy has like fallen onto the ground. He did get hit. He didn't get hit, but he'd fallen onto the ground, I think from like shock, with his head in his hands, like shaking, and like completely felt like kind of crouched down on his skateboard. And I look, and it's my friend. It was my friend. It just was crazy. And my friend skates all the time. He's like 6'8". He's very recognizable. So I knew it was him straight away. And I put down the window and I shout, his name's Luca, and I shout, I'm like, Luca, you idiot. Then I'm trying to call him because I can't believe he basically killed himself. Trying to call him, he doesn't pick up. And then eventually he picks up and he's like, bro, oh my God, like sounded so flabbergasted. Flabbergasted, isn't that such a good word? I need to find out the origin of that word. Wait, flabbergasted. Flabbergasted, it sounds kind of like Nordic. So anyway, I'll tell you about flabbergasted in a sec, guys. Don't hold your breath. So he's like, oh, I'm freaking out. And I was just like, what the fuck was that about? And he goes, I nearly got hit by this car. And I go, I was in the car. Like, I was in that car that nearly ran you over. And anyway, he thought it was a one-way street, didn't realize it was a two-way street, so only looked to his right and didn't look to his left as he came down down the hill across the road. And he just couldn't believe it, like that he nearly literally got hit by a car. And then me and the Ola driver had a nice little bond about that. And although it was a bit morbid, he was like, that would have been my first casualty. And I was like, well, it wasn't, so. But yeah, that was just kind of nuts, essentially. Nearly ran over my mate there. That would not have been very nice, would it? Yeah. But anyway, so I'm going to wrap it up like nowish because we're around like 40 minutes. But I guess I'm very interested to know, have you guys been going out since Corona? Have you had a big switch between, oh, I'm going to be really introverted, or I guess even some people have probably been more extroverted during Corona because it's so easy to call your friends or FaceTime and do that kind of stuff. But how are people managing that transition? Because psychologically it was hard getting into Corona, right? Because that idea of like, wait, I can't go to a restaurant, I can't get my hair cut. It was really hard to adjust to for a few days, I found, or a week. And now I'm like, oh, it's actually really kind of hard to adjust out of that. Because humans adapt, you know, so easily. And I reckon that it's going to be difficult for a lot of people mentally coming out of that. Probably even physically as well, when you're used to lying in your bed and chilling all the time, to having to go out and stay awake till, you know, early hours of the morning if you're going out or whatever. So even just walking around and not just from like rolling out of bed into the bathroom is I think it's going to be an interesting one. So yeah, I'm going to wrap that up, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I love doing these podcasts. I think it's really nice. A nice time to reflect and just chat about whatever. But yeah, bye guys. I can never end these. I'm not going to say goodbye. I'm just going to